Hello, my name is Laura Nagle, and I translate from French and Spanish into English. I would like to share with you today a reading from Íntimas by Adela Zamudio, which I'm currently translating with the working title Confidences. Around the turn of the 20th century, Adela Zamudio was considered one of Bolivia's greatest poets, as well as its foremost advocate for women's rights, especially girls' education. She also wrote numerous essays and short stories, and one novel, Íntimas, which was published in 1913. It's an epistolary novel with a rather unusual structure. Part 1 consists of a series of letters written by one man to another, and Part 2 consists of a series of letters written by one woman to another. The stories that they tell are interconnected, and the reader is able to see how the same events are perceived by men and by women, how they're viewed in the public sphere versus the private sphere, and the contrast between the ways that men's and women's fortunes and reputations could be built or destroyed. I'll read for you a short passage from the beginning of Part 2, in which Antonia writes to Gracia about a local scandal in which a good friend of theirs is involved. I'll read first a few paragraphs of the original Spanish and then a portion of my translation. Cochabamba, 10 de febrero de 1907. Amada Gracia, dejo sin contestación otros párrafos de tu carta por contestar tu pregunta. ¿Qué ha pasado con nuestra amiga Evangelina Paz? Te han contado de ella cosas increíbles, tales que te negaste a escucharlas. Te hallas profundamente impresionada y en la duda me suplicas que te diga la verdad. Aunque no supiese que Pepe Soria es la única persona de la ciudad a quien has visto en estos últimos días, me bastaría saber que algo malo se ha dicho de ella para suponer, sin temor de equivocarme, que es él quien lo ha dicho. Sospecho ya cuáles son esas cosas increíbles y voy a satisfacerte. Pero antes, permite que te recuerde un antecedente. Soria tiene jurado a nuestra amiga odio implacable. Cochabamba, February 10th, 1907. My dearest Gracia, I shall set other aspects of your letter aside so that I might answer your question, what has become of our friend Evangelina Paz? You have heard unbelievable things said of her, so incredible that you refuse to listen any further. You are terribly shocked and have begged me to tell you the truth and relieve you of your doubts. Even were I unaware that Pepe Soria is the only person from the city whom you have seen in recent days, I would need only to hear that something negative was said of Evangelina to surmise, without the slightest fear of misapprehension, that it was he who said it. I can well imagine what these unbelievable things are, and I will satisfy your curiosity. First, however, allow me to remind you of a bit of history. Soria regards our friend with a most relentless loathing. He accuses her of having thwarted his plan to marry Concha, which is, strictly speaking, untrue. Yes, Eva was the first to dare tell her of the awful things that cad was saying about her behind her back, even as he was courting her. She believed herself entitled to do for a friend, for a kindred spirit, what she would have wanted done for her. I supported her in her determination to tell Concha everything. We both were very naive in that regard. But that was not the cause of their definitive separation. Concha had her mind set on marriage and would not be dissuaded over such a trifling matter. Instead, she awaited the first opportunity to treat him with skillful aloofness, prompting an explanation. Soria accused everyone of being unfair and slandering him, and he spoke out against Eva and me. And because Concha so expected him to be vindicated, she failed to realize that, by telling him everything, she was compromising us. But he did not take the same vengeance on us both. I, being more prudent, pretended to take no notice of his anger, while Eva met his slights with rebukes of her own, ultimately making a mortal enemy of him. Let us move on now to the accusation. Evangelina is to be married. She has successfully won the affections of Victoria Flor's fiancé. She has stolen him away, and I was an accomplice to this crime. I kept her here as my guest for a long time so that she would see Mendez frequently, and the scheme was a success on my account. That's it, is it not? Tell me this. Do you imagine that any woman, however skillful, could possibly manage to convince a man to wed unless other circumstances pointed him in that direction? Remember, too, that society has always misjudged Evangelina. She has two disadvantages, her mother's character and her own. Both women make an open display of independence, albeit each in her own fashion. The excessive religious practices to which Doña Teresa has been devoting herself of late do not secure for her the invulnerability that other ladies have thus procured, because in her case, piety is a matter not of calculation, but of passion. So long as she fails to fit the mold, her self-righteousness does her no good. Rare in this society is the person who sees the sun shining at the zenith and dares assert that it is day if no one else has yet so stated. God help the person who resists the social current of servility that dominates all, determines all. As for Evangelina, men disdain her because she dares to think. And when her own friends, perhaps maliciously, perhaps not, speak of her eccentricities in the presence of gentlemen, supposedly sketching her moral profile, they succeed only in drawing a caricature of her. "Only you understand me," she has said to me on more than one occasion. "Never are my other friends and I of like mind. What they call virtue is what I call sin, and what they call sin is, to my mind, virtue." I received letters from the city, among them one from Doña Teresa. Taking no time to write to her own daughter, she asked me to pass her a message, a request from Rosa Joffre. "I have never been able," I told her, "to comprehend your friendship with that wretched woman." "Were she not wretched, if she were instead a courteous young lady, she would have no need of me," Evangelina replied vehemently. "Or if she did, there would be no merit whatsoever in lending her a hand. Such harsh judgment is typical of a different class of person, Antonia. I am astonished to see it in you. If I receive a visit from Rosa Joffre, it is not with a view to taking pleasure in her pitiable confidences. Everyone knows that. When she comes and asks me for 2 reales because her child has not eaten, or for an old blanket to keep him warm, or if she requests that I recommend her to someone who might give her some work, how could I be so cruel as to dismiss her?" "I simply fear," I said, "that she is not truly repentant, and that she seeks to use your friendship and protection as a kind of facade." "That may well be," said Evangelina. "But if we were always to be mistrustful, we would do no good works at all. In any case, knowing I had been toyed with by a hypocrite would cause me far less shame than discovering that my own blind mistrust had deterred me from lifting a fallen woman to her feet." Thank you for listening.